the headlights for this hour on VTV News. Vietnamese diplomacies advancing peace and progress. Vietnamese seafood industry proactively adapts to market trends. And in our war news, IMF warns of rising global financial risk amid U.S. tariff policies.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello, it's 3 p.m. local time in Hanoi. You're watching VTV News. On Wednesday morning at the International Conference, 50 years of national reunifications, the role of diplomacies in peacemaking in history and presence. State President Lương Cường emphasized Vietnam's strategic approach during its unequal struggle against much stronger invader. He noted that the party and state of Vietnam recognized early on the importance of integrating military, political, and diplomatic efforts. Following the Politburo 1969 resolutions that established diplomacies at a crucial strategic front, these diplomatic initiatives helped divide opposition forces, secure international support, and communicate the legitimacies of the Vietnamese people's struggle worldwide. State President Lương Cường affirmed that Vietnamese diplomacy role in peace building has been evident across historical periods and expressed confidence that the conference would further clarify the significant lessons and remarkable contributions of Vietnamese diplomacies during both national liberation and development. During the 44th sessions on Wednesday morning, the National Assembly discussed draft resolutions on value-added tax VAT reductions for the latter half of 2025 and all of 2026. The National Assembly Standing Committee agreed with the government's proposal to reduce the VAT rate by 2% for goods and services currently taxed at 10%. This reduction would be effective from July 1, 2025 through December 31, 2026. Deputy Prime Minister Hồ Đức Phước explained that the VAT reductions aim to support businesses and stimulate production and commerce. He noted that budget expenditure will increase this year, particularly due to administrative streamlining, with approximately $6.5 billion needed for early retirements and severance payments to officials. Vietnam has disbursed the equivalent of $2.3 billion into innovations and startup activities in 2024. The figure was announced at the National Innovation Investment Forum. In 2024, 141 investment deals were made by international funds and foreign partners. Notably, deals ranging from $100 to $300 million have surged 2.7 times compared to last year. This highlights a growing appetite for investing in large-scale companies with moderate risk profiles. The increased pace of deal-making reflects investor confidence, even as global venture capital and private equity flows continue to decline. As artificial intelligence AI continues to evolve rapidly, the demand for high-performance computing underscores the urgent need to expand data center infrastructure. At the Data Center and Cloud Summit held on Tuesday, experts emphasized the importance of developing green data infrastructure to support AI advancement.
Vietnam's data center market was valued at approximately $630 million in 2024 and is projected to reach $1.1 billion by the end of the decade. However, limited participation from major tech corporations and underdeveloped international connectivity remain key challenges to scaling up large-scale data centers.
By 2030, Vietnam is expected to operate around 15 international submarine cable routes. This enhanced digital infrastructure, combined with competitive labor and electricity costs, will offer us a competitive edge in the global data economy.
To stimulate data center growth, experts recommend that Vietnam expand its renewable energy sources and ensure a stable power supply. tax incentives, data protection frameworks, and developing an AI ecosystem with skilled tech talent are crucial for attracting foreign investment.
We also need to look into how we can make sure that our data centers build properly and be able to deploy the right sized equipment. So we can look into green data centers, we can look into modularity so that you can start as small as possible.
Vietnam must grow its investment in large-scale data centers 15-fold to meet rising demands for digital services and national digital transformation. This growth presents significant opportunities for the country to become a major player in the global data center market.
In the seafood sector, the United States is currently Vietnam's largest export market with a turnover of about $2 billion per year, accounting for nearly 1/5 of the industry total value. The 90-day suspension of reciprocal tariff has shown initial positive effects. However, the export to this market still face many challenges. This situation presents an opportunity for seafood enterprises to restructure their market approach and explore new directions. According to the Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers, during this 90-day period, enterprises should expedite the transit and delivery process to minimize high tariff risks. In addition, it is necessary to proactively develop plans to expand into new markets as alternative to the U.S. market, with a focus on promising regions such as ASEAN, the Middle East, South Korea, and the EU. As U.S. market experiences unpredictable fluctuations, many Vietnamese seafood enterprises are shifting their focus to European export. Export turnover to Europe is projected to reach $1 billion in 2025. To enhance product value, businesses must adapt to a more proactive and methodical approach to meet increasingly stringent market requirements.
Each month, this factory exports approximately 30 containers containing over 750 tons of various seafood products.
Our factory is focusing on developing high-quality, innovative products to break into demanding international markets.
Vietnam's seafood export generates over $10 billion annually. However, this figure has begun declining due to unstable raw material supplies, which has forced processing factories into a passive position.
We must support farmers in sustainable shrimp farming. Many have poured all their assets into this industry and are now left without capital to invest in equipment, especially as banks are not extending loans to them.
Our export value has the potential to rise, but high capital requirements remain a major barrier. Still, I believe the industry will continue to grow.
According to leading experts, Vietnamese is soon establish a national data center for the seafood industry. This platform would provide regular updates on policies and market trends, helping farmers and businesses be more proactive in farming, purchasing, processing, and exporting.
The Ministry of Industry and Trade has issued a directive calling for stricter oversight of product origins to protect the reputations of Vietnamese goods amid tightening import regulations. In early 2025, Vietnam faced 3 anti-tax evasion probes from the US and EU targeting wood, steel, and footwear, largely due to poor traceability. The Vietnam Textiles and Apparel Association warns that exporters must now meet tougher US and EU material origins and labor standards. According to the Vietnam Timber and Forest Products Association, exporters must pinpoint logging sites with GPS precision, detailed production methods, and secure third-party certifications. And before moving on to some other news, let's take a look at foreign exchange rate for today, April 23rd. Coming up next on VTV News, relics and memorabilia handed over to families of martyrs. And Voices for Peace, how Vietnamese students in U.S. rally against war. A ceremony for handing over relics and memorabilia of martyrs to their relatives was held Tuesday in Bạc Liêu. During the ceremony, the Departments of Social Policies, General Departments of Politics of the Vietnam People's Army presented martyr Nguyễn Văn Rô death certificate, grave card, diary, and buried photos of his comrade. The martyr relative promised to preserve and cherish these mementos, which serve as a reminder of noble sacrifice and sacred values that this revolutionary soldier devoted to his country. The Ministry of Public Security is coordinating with the local police to collect DNA samples from relatives of unidentified martyrs to create a database within the National Population Database. Hanam Province has taken lead in this effort, with the provincial police organizing 45 sample collection points that have gathered DNA samples from over 7,000 martyrs' relatives. The collected DNA will be stored in a gene bank where it will be analyzed and compared with martyr remains to verify identities. This process enables accurate determinations of blood relationships and identifications of martyrs. During the Hanam Provincial Police Leader, the collections of samples from all eligible martyrs' relatives in the province will be completed before April 30th. 50 years ago, as Vietnam lay engulfed in the devastations of war, a generation of Vietnamese students in the United States made a choice that would echo through history. They were more than just scholars pursuing knowledge. They were voices of conscience, speaking up for what was right. Driven by a deep longing for peace in their homeland, they dedicated themselves to the visions of a reunified and peaceful Vietnam. Our VTV reporter in the United States tells us more.
On April 30th, 1975, news of the liberation of South Vietnam echoed across the streets of San Francisco. Thousands of American and overseas Vietnamese students poured into the streets, cheering and waving flags in a burst of emotion.
That afternoon, around 6 p.m., the Americans came back here, sharing their joy with us. Then together, we kept chanting the song, Ho Chi Minh, Ho Chi Minh.
From this house, Đạo and dozens of Vietnamese students studying in the U.S. 50 years ago raised their voices together for justice, demanding an end to the war in Vietnam.
Here, we didn't just discuss the war, we also talked about the Vietnamese people and Vietnamese culture. Our goal was to help Americans understand that if the U.S. government continued to support the war in Vietnam, it would not lead to anything positive and would ultimately harm America.
To dedicate themselves to their homeland, these young men, just 18 or 20 years old, were willing to put their studies on hold, endure harassment, and even face the threat of death.
Back then, I reached out to American anti-war groups to join the protests, expressing the pain of the Vietnamese people. The spirit at that time came from the heart of every individual.
They lived with a purpose far greater than themselves, their youth defined by a commitment to a cause that transcended personal gain. True peace is not forged by weapons, but by the unwavering courage to stand up and say no to war.
On Tuesday, from 4 to 5 p.m., tens of thousands of Ho Chi Minh City residents gathered along Lê Duẩn Street in District 1 to watch the art performance and parade rehearsals. Many brought waters and fans, as well as flowers and gifts for the soldiers. Over 12,000 officers and soldiers from the armed forces, alongside students and civilians, took part in this second rehearsals. For the first time in a Vietnamese parade, military units from Laos and Cambodia also participated. As heroic music played, the steady marching steps connected the glorious past to the present. The event began with an elaborate welcome performance featuring hundreds of artists, students, and members of the public, conveying Vietnam's aspiration for peace and prosperity. Although the official rehearsal wasn't scheduled until Tuesday evening, thousands gathered along Lê Street in District 1, Ho Chi Minh City from the early afternoon to catch a glimpse of parade preparations, despite sweltering conditions hovering around 30 degrees in the evening. Residents waited patiently many hours, braving the heat and traffic restrictions. The massive turnout and excitement highlighted the growing anticipations for the grand events commemorating the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the South and national reunification.
Although they left as early as 4 p.m., this group of friends was still unable to get close to this street to witness the start of the parade. Undeterred, they decided to wait at an intersection, hoping to catch a glimpse of the parade as it passed by.
We had to travel through 3 different routes. Traffic was so congested we couldn't get any closer. It was scorching hot, but everyone was still excited and full of pride. The spirit of patriotism was truly overwhelming.
As the rehearsal time approached, the crowd grew larger. The area behind the second security barrier became packed with people eager to witness the parade preparations up close.
I wanted to come see it before, but never had the chance. Today the roads were blocked from all directions, but it's okay. I'll just stand here and see whatever I can.
Amid the excitement and bustling energy, a deep sense of pride and patriotism filled the streets as crowds eagerly waited for the procession to pass by.
Today is a truly joyful day. I'm proud to be Vietnamese.
I'm deeply grateful to all Vietnamese heroes and martyrs.
Despite the crowded and bustling streets, people followed the security forces' instructions carefully. Local authorities helped by directing the public to safe, convenient viewing spots along the parade route.
The People's Army Cinema is launching a film week to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the South and national reunification. From April 22nd to 25th, the program features 8 war-themed motion pictures, 4 documentaries, and 4 dramas. The event honors historical heroes, celebrates patriotism, and aims to inspire national development in the new era.
The event drew an overwhelming audience from its first screening on Tuesday. The People's Army Cinema needed to add extra chairs beyond the planned 200 seats to accommodate all attendees. The packed theater demonstrated the strong public interest in films about history and war.
I've always been drawn to war stories. I want to understand the hardships of our ancestors endured to win our country's independence.
These films don't just teach us history and the symbolism of soldiers. They ignite in us a deep sense of patriotism and gratitude for those who came before.
Documentary films carry a unique weight. The raw and reverent imagery captures the essence of a nation's memory and pride. Kicking off the week was the documentary titled Nối vòng tay lớn, Joining Hands in Unity, a moving tribute to artist soldiers who marched not with rifles, but with songs, poetry, and cameras.
During wartime, the culture front was no less fierce, where artists stood shoulder to shoulder with soldiers, singing the same anthem of unity and freedom. There was a burning desire felt not only by the late composer Chick Công Sơn, but by an entire nation.
The Film Week is more than just a series of screenings. It's a collective tribute to generations who fought for peace, a journey back through hardship and heroism that awakens pride, strengthens resilience, and nurtures the spirit of unity in Vietnamese hearts today.
The purpose of this commemorative film week is to pay tribute to previous generations and inspire today's generation to cherish the hard-won peace in which they now live.
The Film Week, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the South and national reunification, will run through April 25th.
The world-famous opera Carmen, a timeless masterpiece celebrating its 150th anniversary, will finally debut at the Hồ Gươm Theatre. Vietnam will be the first destination in Southeast Asia for a faithful recreation of Carmen's first 1875 iteration, promising local audiences a world-class musical experience.
Revived by the Royal Operas of Versailles, the Palazzetto Bruzane, and the Rouen Normandie Opera House, Carmen at the Hồ Gươm Theatre will faithfully recreate the original 1875 production, from stage design and costume to sound and setting.
What makes this special is that the French team has handcrafted every prop with remarkable attention to detail.
We were genuinely impressed by the Vietnamese team's warm hospitality, thoughtful organization, and professional coordination. Vietnam and its people have inspired us deeply, and we are more prepared than ever to present this classic opera to opera lovers here.
Carmen brings with it detailed stage directions to vibrant set sketches and costume design. The performance will bring Vietnamese audiences to 19th century Seville, Spain, where Carmen, the symbol of passion, freedom, and individuality, is told in its purest original spirit.
We hope to deliver an experience of refined excellence. Carmen will allow audiences to fully immerse themselves in the 19th century essence of opera while celebrating and preserving the timeless value of classical art.
More than just a performance, Carmen in Vietnam serves as a cultural bridge where European artistic heritage meets the contemporary spirit of Vietnam.
Coming up next in our world news, IMF warns of rising global financial risk amid U.S. tariff policies. And U.S. tariff on China will come down substantially, according to President Donald Trump. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, on Tuesday cautions that global financial stability risks have risen significantly amid heightened economic policy uncertainties and market volatility. In its semi-annual Global Financial Stability Report released during the 2025 spring meetings, the fund raised concerns that U.S. tariff policies have sparked widespread policy uncertainty. The report also identified geopolitical threats, including potential military conflicts, as additional sources of financial vulnerability. The IMF warned that tariffs would reduce productivity and output while increasing prices across economies. In response, the IMF has lowered its global growth forecast to 2.8% for this year, 0.5 percentage point below its January 2025 projections. U.S. President Donald Trump said the 145% tariff he imposed on Chinese imports will eventually come down substantially, but won't reach zero. Speaking to the press in the Oval Office on Tuesday, the U.S. President expressed hope the deal would fall through fairly quickly, as he expressed optimism about future talks to reach a U.S.-China trade deal. President Donald Trump added that his administration would make its own deal if China refused its conditions. The U.S. multiple rounds of tariff on Chinese imports add up to a rate of 145%, prompting China to hit back with retaliatory tariff on U.S. export, totaling 125%. India on Monday imposed a 12% provisional safeguard duty for 200 days on 5 steel product categories, including hot rolled coil, metallic coated steel coils, sheet, and plate. This measure is part of the government's effort to protect domestic producers from a surge in imports. The government has set specific import prices on a cost, insurance, and freight basis ranging from $675 US to $964 US per ton for these steel products. Any shipments imported below these prices will incur the safeguard duty. This duty is one of several countermeasures implemented by the government in response to the increasing flows of cheaper steel imports into India, which has been affecting domestic demand in recent years. How do you feed astronauts during a year-long mission to Mars and back when every kilogram of cargo is crucial? UK researchers proposed a solution growing food, fuel, and even medicines aboard the spacecraft using just a few cultivated cells and bioreactors. Now join us in the following story to learn how researchers and developers are experimenting with this idea.
Funded by the Bezos Earth Fund, researchers at Imperial College London are investigating sustainable ways to produce food for both astronauts and people on Earth. Their method uses biofoundries, facilities where cells act as mini factories to create useful products. The team tested this approach in space on Tuesday when Europe's first commercial returnable spacecraft, Phoenix 1, carried their cells in a miniature automated laboratory called Space Lab.
So this is where the great collaboration with Frontiers Space is coming along, and they are developing devices that will work in space as our bioreactors work in our planet. And they look like something like that, much smaller, more modest, but this will allow us to generate a lot of information on how these cells behave in space conditions.
Space Lab is a lab-in-a-box technology that enables bioexperimentation in microgravity while eliminating traditional barriers to space-based research. The data gathered from this mission will help finalize the design of the inflatable atmospheric decelerator.
Lab in a box, fundamentally, is a bio and wet chemistry lab like what you see here, essentially. It has fluidic control, thermal control, the pressure is controlled, the atmosphere is controlled. And what we're trying to do is really bring it back down and miniaturize them and make them automated. For the fundamental reason is that mass per kilogram is the unit economics of space. The heavier it is, the more expensive it will be. And what we're trying to do is reduce the cost and make it more accessible.
Developers hope their technology will expand access to microgravity research and in-space manufacturing across various industries. Even brief exposure to microgravity conditions will demonstrate whether their cells can produce diverse products, from biodiesel and dairy items to vitamins and vanilla ice cream.
And now, as usual, let's continue with the weather forecast. And that are all the news for today. To rewatch our program, you can log on to VTVgo.vn or download our mobile application VTVgo. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.